Welcome to another episode here on the Carl High Club. I have a very special guest, a close friend of mine. We have been friends for quite some time. We met each other abroad working on yachts. Welcome to the show, Reynette Creer.
Hi, hello, Kyle. Thank you for having me today. I'm very excited to chat to you on your podcast.
Yes, it's very exciting for me to speak to you as well, because I just want to let everybody know listening that Reynette is a South African who married an American, and you can actually hear some South African American twang in her accent, and this is going to be absolutely fun. I am looking forward to this.
Okay, yeah, because I probably jump between the two accents because uh, that's what I do nowadays.
But isn't it strange, in order for you to actually communicate with people, especially in America, that I found you have to adapt to their accent to for them to understand you, because there are certain mannerisms that the rest of the world would express, and for some reason they don't understand it, so you actually have to say it in an American twang to get your point across.
Yes, that is because I don't say water, I say water, and I pause
Water.
and I laugh. Water. Um, there's my Starbucks, and oh my gosh, and this. But the thing is, yes, you are correct. Even though I think I sound very American, they still, where are you from? Are you from England? Or oh goodness, what was the one I heard? Like, no, I'm from South Africa. Oh, but where in South Africa? Like, what country in South Africa?
Yeah, that's my favorite. Then I tell them I reign from a tiny country by the name of the Moet.
The Moet.
Yeah,
Goodness, who will the leader be of the Moet if an alien would to land on Earth? Be like, hey, in the Moet, take me to your leader. Where would you take him?
I would just take them to the mountain, the Machalis mountain in the Moet, and I'll let them go stand on top of that mountain and let them forget about that question in the first place.
Or you take that person to one of those bars. Oh goodness, I remember hanging out there. What was the? They have a bunch of bars, a Springbok bar, or what?
Yeah, you take
I
them,
can't
you
remember.
take you take them to the mountain, and then you have the same conversation that Mufasa and Simba had a while back, where everything the light touches is the Moet, and that dark, shady place over there is Pretoria West. We never go there.
Yeah, Victoria West. We never go there. Yes. Or on the other side, there's Mojo's. We only go there when we're drunk.
So, Renate,
But I don't
how?
think it's
Uh,
I don't think it's called Mojo's anymore though.
I'm sorry.
Something else. I don't think it's called Mojo's anymore. It's something else, tunes or something like that.
Tunes
I
with
haven't.
a C, a W, a W, a Z. So there's all kinds of letters in that small little word.
But yeah, W. I can't quite remember. It's been quite some time that I've left that side.
So, Renate, I would like to ask you, what is it like to actually adapt in America? You know, coming from South Africa, and now you're setting home base in America. How has that adaptation been for you? You know, in that whole entire progress from marrying an American, settling down. How have you find it since going abroad temporarily to actually being to a point? Well, this is home now.
Um, Kyle, the thing is, I just want to explain to the listeners who are South African, has never been to America, has only been to like a few places. The US is absolutely huge. Um, like I've been to how many 11 states already, of which I lived in three of them, and I've also visited the capital. And America is, yeah, it's just so big. It's very hard to explain how big it is. Like, I last year I did a road trip from Colorado. I went through a little bit of Oklahoma, Texas, and New Mexico, and I drove for about 18 hours, and
Yeah.
the scenery stayed exactly the same, except when I got close to the Rocky Mountains again. Like in South Africa, when you drive 12 hours, you would have seen at least, I want to say, 5 to 6 types of scenery.
And also
And
you're
also,
80% across the country.
yes, exactly. As where South Africa is actually one of the larger countries in the world. South Africa is the 25th largest country in the world,
Number
considering there's
25.
number 25, considering there's 195 countries in the world. South Africa is actually considered big, but the US is even bigger, and there's like 350 million people. So just to remember that is that America is so big. It's difficult to say. Oh, I just adapted to America. Um, every state is actually a little culture in its own. You
Yeah.
cannot compare Florida to New York. You cannot compare New York to Hawaii or Hawaii to Colorado. I
It's
mean,
like
I
tiny
live in
little
Colorado.
countries. It's actually like being able to ask
Exactly.
people, what country are you from in America? That will be the better
No,
question.
don't tell an American that America should actually divide into smaller countries. No, 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 no. They might not like each other. The Floridians might not really like the New Yorkers, and the New Yorkers might not really like the Washington. Yeah, the Oregonians. I don't know how you say that. Or
Oregonians.
Oregonians, but yeah. But don't tell them that to divide into countries. No, 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 no. Their constitution and their Bill of Rights. Okay, the Bill of Rights are the 10 first, laws of the Constitution.
Did you have to
That
do
binds.
any like material? Did you have to actually study America when you got married with your green card interviews? How did that process
That's
go?
not for the green card. Even though my husband has told me that I am more American than a lot of Americans that he actually knows. But no, not for my green card. But when I have to apply for my citizenship, then I'm gonna have to do like a questionnaire or exam or something. And I have to have 70% to pass.
What type of questions do they ask in that type of exam?
They ask like in what year was America, got their independence from England, and then it's like 1976 that I know that's in my brain, and then stuff about presidents or what's the First Amendment, what's the Second Amendment, stuff like that. So just general trivia of America.
And you still work in yachting from time to time. So what do you keep yourself busy with while you're an American citizen, between inverted commas? What do you do with your life?
Well, for now, I'm actually very fortunate because I'm married to a man that's he's in the military, and so I've been kind of, I want to say, well, we've been married for just over 2 years now. So since then, I've been kind of like going, where his job is. It was first in New Mexico and then Colorado, but I have been freelance chefing in yachting. So when I met you, oh goodness, I was cooking for you. So that was actually the perk of yachting for me, was I can be home and then from there work, go to the yachts. And luckily I've got friends, in agencies and so on boats, things like that. But I was actually retiring this year in March. Was supposed to be my last trip. I was in the Bahamas. It was absolutely lovely. And then a friend of mine summoned me out of yachting retirement. So that's why I'm in Costa Rica at the moment.
Like a very good detectives movies, like, we need you more than ever, get your badge and get your gun, it's go time.
Yeah, let's go. Exactly. So yeah, I've been fortunate in that sense, but now I'm kind of like back to the drawing board, because you do get to a point um, where the small spaces not really for you anymore. When I say small space, it's like sharing a cabin with another person that you don't know, and a small, and working the hours and stuff like that, and living out of your suitcase. So I can actually feel it that time in my life where, the chapter has kind of had come to an end, and I need to, get my foot into a new door. But that for me is still a little bit a challenge.
What is it? Would you
to
still like to continue with regards to cooking, or where do you see yourself going? Because I know you've got other hobbies as well with regards to art and refurbishing furniture and everything like that. So, what is it that you can actually see yourself doing? Because I know yachting has got its temporary factor because everything is transactional and job security isn't really confirmed. So, where would you like to
yeah,
move
I
on
think
away from it?
yeah, I think people don't understand. Like, if you're in a boat for a year in yachting, that is considered a long time. If you
Yeah.
have, yeah, for some people on, I want to say, land-based jobs, they have been with a company for like 5 years, and it still feels like that. But it's I want to say like a junior position or something. But if you've been on a yacht for a year, that's considered like longevity. But
Yeah.
um, my thing is yachting because the money is really good. So that's it. That's the thing. If you have your foot in the door, in the yachting door, it's difficult to get it out. Um, so
Yeah.
for me, I've always been a creative person, and I absolutely love painting and sketching and things like that, and doing things with my hands. I've always been talented in with any practical task given to me, and I can imitate things. And I studied drama, so there's that. But that's why cooking came very easy for me because it's something you do with your hands. So
Yeah.
I hope um, that is something that I can, transition into in the future.
But you said you also tried your hand with regards to the with the drama over there as well. How did that go?
That was lovely, actually, because I was in Colorado, yeah, Colorado Springs. I just moved there, and I applied for my green card. So if you apply for your green card and you're in the States, you're not allowed to work for the duration that, oh goodness, that your application is, ongoing. So
Yeah.
yeah, for 6 months. Luckily, I was lucky because my husband is in the military. My green card process was expedited, so I got my green card in within 6 months. Some people aren't as lucky. So I started looking around for things to do that's not necessarily work. So I came across this little theater. They had auditions, and I starred in the production of Mother Courage.
Oh
And it's
wow.
ironic because I did Mother Courage in university, and I thought, oh goodness, this is such a drag. But when I actually performed it, was when I really understood the play and the essence of it and things like that. But then that was end of 2019, and then 2020 came around and COVID hit, and I mean it hit the entertaining and performing arts industry very hard. And I think that
Yeah.
theater only recently opened up again. So yes, that was COVID. COVID just threw everything upside down.
So, have you thought about trying to go back to the theater as like a hobby again?
You see, I would I would always want to. I feel if you're a born artist in whichever direction, or whether it's performing or visual, or if you are born an artist, you will die an artist.
Yeah.
And um, I would love, my dream is to have a dinner theater one day and kind of like combine food with performances and things like that. So yes, it's always performing will always be a dream of mine, or in
But
my boat. I absolutely love it.
cooking is also an art in itself. I mean, you've got all of the. It's I see cooking similar to music. I mean, you've got the you've got the foundation of it, and what you do with that foundation, you create art from there on out as well. So I think that is a very cool combination, dinner theater, because not only the theater being an expression from there, the expression comes in the food and the type of food that you compare with the theater piece. You can get really creative with regards to things like that, I think.
Yes, you see, Carl, for me, life is about living for the pleasure and enjoyment that life has to offer. I mean, nobody lives for that Monday morning when you have to go sit in traffic and go to work. If you're in like a 9 to 5, and yes, you enjoy your work, but we all live for that weekend, or when you're going to go do something that you draw pleasure from, whether it's going to see a show, go watch your favorite artist, or go to a concert, or eat a lovely piece of chocolate that melts in your mouth, or
Yeah.
it's food for me is the dessert and the pleasure of life. And food is definitely an art. And that's why I think I want to combine those things. Like, really take yourself on a, go spoil yourself, treat yourself,
Treat
kind of thing. That's what it is.
yourself, because we all have got these things that we need to endure in order to, get the reward from it, because you're not going to get that reward if you don't work towards it. And I actually compared this the other day with regards to getting a tattoo. And a lot of people want a tattoo, but they don't want to sit through that pain. And it's actually enduring that little bit of pain to get that reward of the tattoo at the end of the day. And you can imply that with anything in your life, just work a little hard and you can actually get that reward that you want.
Exactly. It's the it comes down to too much of a good thing is not a good thing anymore. Like, and that is true. I believe it's that yin yang kind of idea, and the light and the darkness. It's definitely the balance in life, that you have to upkeep in order to enjoy the good in life even more.
So, what would you say is daily struggles that you're dealing with in order to maintain those joys and balance in your life? What struggles do you have in order to maintain that balance?
As a personal or professional struggle.
You can either or. I mean, like we all want to maintain that balance, and there are things that's keeping us from it. And what would you say is the main catalyst with regards to that? I mean, everybody wants to achieve that balance, but life happens. And what would you say is one of the biggest catalysts of that?
I think it comes down to choices. I think you have to choose how long you want to endure something, that to just endure it, to, let's say, a job. It's your choice if you want to take a job um, that has you working 4 days a week or 5 days a week, or working evening shifts. It's your choice. You choose what your hardships are. You choose your spouse. You choose your situation, actually, because it's all in the end. It's all about what you choose, how you react to certain situations, and you can choose. Listen, it is Friday afternoon, 3 p.m. I am done with work. Now I'm gonna go have a beer. So I think it boils down to choices. You can choose what's hard for you and what's not.
But
That's
how do
the
you
answer
make no how do you make sure that this choice I'm making right now is good for me? Because sure, you might think it is a reward, but that reward can actually, be limited, and that reward can actually just be a method of prolonging the inevitable, of just numbing the proverbial pain you're sitting with right now. Because sure, I'm making a choice to reward myself at the end of the day with a beer, but little does that beer know that it's going to probably give you like a hangover the next day, So, how do you know that specific choice that you're making right now is good for you? Because it might feel good, but is it good for you?
Kyle, you're asking that question to an empath that is a self-diagnosed adult ADD person. So I think that question is has to be custom and personalized to every individual at the end of the day. I think when it comes down to your personality, what you can, how much, okay, let's use that example again that you're talking about, like a beer. Like, if you know 5 beers, then stick to 5 beers. If you know, oh, I can drink 10 beers and not have a hangover the next day, then that's your choice. Um, so, and I also think you will only know this afterwards, and then you learn from it. When I was younger, like I'm in my 50s now. When I was in my 20s, I had this mindset. I want to feel what things feel like. I want to experience things for myself to know what it feels like. And after doing that for, a decade, all of a sudden when my 50s hit, I don't know what sort of switch went off in my brain, but all of a sudden it went to from okay, I want to experience things for myself to let me learn from other people's mistakes.
Yeah. Allow yourself to do that.
Yes, and allow yourself to do that. Um, yes, but at the end of the day, you have to focus on yourself and what your talents are and what is unique to yourself, what you like.
But the thing is, where I'm coming down at is to maintain that balance in the choices, right? And I think what the majority of the world is struggling with right nowadays are sure, I always want to paint, but it's easier to go sit in the bar and drink than to go home straight after that 9 to 5 job and to go paint because you're tired. And the choice you're making is to numb that pain that you endured throughout the day, just by rewarding yourself with one thing. And that priorities that you talked about earlier as well. What do we want out of life, and what choices are we going to make in order to maintain that as well? So that's where I was getting at is how do you personally know what choice to make? And I think that is something that I'm struggling with lately as well, because I am for the first time experiencing what anxiety feels like. And you cannot help to shift the blame to yourself, because this is all choices you're making that induces this anxiety. So what can I do to make it go away? And every single person, like you said, need to actually reevaluate their priorities.
Carl, what you're talking about, like everything that you're saying, for me, I have like 10 thought processes going on right here now. Like, okay, when you were talking about, oh goodness, let me just gather my thoughts quickly. Um, okay, this is what I want to say about that. Is you say you experience anxiety now. I mean, you're also in your 50s now.
Mm,
That reminded me of that. There's a meme going around where you, as a child, you so wished, that you were a grown up and you can, do whatever you want. But that's the thing. Now that we are grown up, now we can do whatever we want. But I think because there are just so many choices, that gives us anxiety sometimes when you like, I don't know what to choose. I've actually experienced this during this week as well. I was offered another job, another position on a boat after I've said no, I'm done with yachting, because the thing is, I've made this choice in my mind as well, is that as long as I keep my foot in the one door in yachting, I will never be able to go through a different door. Then you're kind of like just standing with your foot in two doors, and you cannot go through either one of them. So yes,
a
we
communal friend of ours actually once made a very beautiful metaphor without him actually knowing about it, I think, because we were drinking and he was referring to something else. But I like to imply it in other factors in our life. I mean, Carson, you know Carson, our
yes, yes, yes,
beautiful,
I remember. Oh, blue eyes.
our little Carson. And he said, he mentioned something with regards to Tarzan syndrome. And it's like that because you can't swing to a different vine if you don't let go of the previous one. In order to keep going, you need to let go of the other vine. Otherwise, you're going to sit in a situation and you're going to hang between the two and you're not going anywhere. And I thought that is such a
Exactly.
beautiful, beautiful metaphor.
Yes, and then you're gonna just hang there. It's like, where's my momentum? I cannot go forward.
And to gather that momentum again is going to be horrible. And Yeah, you
Yes.
can't. I think people need to let go of certain things that's causing them that hardship and just take that plunge and keep that momentum going. Because I think that is what brings forth that anxiety is when you hang in there in the middle of two choices and not sticking with one, you're going to continuously hang there, and your momentum to get going again is going to be hard.
And the thing is, Guy, as well, the older, and I think you and I had this conversation previously as well, is now that we are getting older, we are faced with adult problems. And I think you and I, that has a little bit of Peter Pan syndrome. I don't know if you know what that is.
Mm. No, I
Is
fully relate to that.
is where like I still feel very young, and I
Yeah.
still get a lot of compliments. People when they ask me like how old I am, and I just like out of curiosity. I'm not one of those women that like, oh, don't ask me what my age is. I'm not one of those women. I'm very open about who and what I am. I'm very honest about it. But I am always a little curious. Like when I ask somebody, when they ask me how old I am, and they always the most recent one was somebody guessed that I was 24, and I'm like, wow, goodness, thank you so much. But I'm turning 35 this year, so I do not feel it. I do not feel like I'm getting older. In fact, it kind of like feels like I'm getting okay. In some ways, I am getting older. That I know. Like sometimes my back hurts, or I just slept a little bit skew on my pillow, and then I wake up and it feels like I was in a UFC bloody fight. But it's
Yeah,
not.
and your body
It
makes noises that it never made before just by sitting still.
exactly. But I am still, very comfortable rolling around on the floor and doing kid stuff. I still get excited about getting an ice cream, and there are certain things I think, but that's also a choice. And going back to choices, that's also a choice that I make. I
And
choose
I
to be
also
excited
think
about the cream.
not letting go of everything in your past. That's that small things that used to bring you joy as a child. And I think we shouldn't outgrow things that does make you happy. And one thing I really wanted to talk about that sticked with me for ages, and Reynette and myself worked together on the same boat before. And to unwind at the end of the day, we would sit on the floor in the kitchen and play hand tennis, just chat and talk and talk how about our days were and what we're going to do, but we would just sit there on the kitchen floor and play hand
And it's
tennis.
right. Yeah. It's important. It's important to play. I love games. I absolutely love playing. And I think what's happening in my life as well, I play grown up. When I have to do grown up things, my husband and I, we actually we all have that grown up corner in your house. Either in a study or your office or whatever. We all have that grown up file or whatever, and we actually call it our grown up stuff or our adult files. Like I
Yeah.
feel like a kid in my house, but then when I have to adult, I remember you on your previous podcast, you're talking about hats or masks. Then I put on my adult hat and I go do adult things, and I feel very proud of myself. Ooh, I've adulted now, and then I kind of like take off that hat again, and I become my own kid again.
I
kind of.
actually recently decided to investigate my childhood and things that used to bring me joy, and I'm trying to relive it and see if I can, implicate it, imply, what's the word I'm looking for? Implement it in my adult life. And I bought a jar of bubbles the other day. I started playing with bubbles, and I ride my skateboard every now and then.
Do
And
you do you do you do you do you run yourself a bubble bath as well?
of course, and it's those tiny little
I
things that
run.
you can do in your day-to-day life that you can actually do. That small little things that doesn't really cost much in order to bring you, just to brighten your day up just a little bit. And I think we shouldn't outgrow childish things or like that childlike sense of wonder to the world.
So I'm gonna something. There's a quote that I absolutely love, and I'm gonna say it in Afrikaans, and then for the English listeners who do not understand Afrikaans, I will translate. It's geluk lê in eenvoud.
Yeah.
What joy and happiness lies in simplicity, and there's no shame in celebrating the simple joys in life. Um, as in, it's to enjoy. Okay, we're gonna sound very corny. The sound of a bird, you know, and a beautiful sunrise. Yeah, that's a wonderful thing. That's what we live for.
And I think, you know, I'm not going to let go of those things that used to bring me joy, because a lot of people think growing up means wearing that grown up hat the whole time. And then they wonder, why am I always so angry, or why am I so depressed? Because you're letting go of little things in your life that used to bring you joy. And that's that priorities and choices again. Like, am I going to allow this darkness to, enter my life, or am I going to do something about it just to make my day-to-day activities, no matter how small they are, just a little bit more colorful?
Yes. Um, yeah, I'm thinking that now as well. I think I am. I want to say miserable, but when I do the adult things in my life, that's yeah, that adult hat. That's where the goodness. I don't say the misery lies, because I mean you have to be responsible and take care of yourself and do all those things, but you have to hold on to a certain sense of wonder. I actually still buy children's books. I love children's books and like fairy tale books, fairy books. I absolutely love that imaginary world that comes with it.
And that's why I like interacting with children as well, and watching children's movies, and like you do with the books, to explore imagination. And I think, the more grown up you get, you let go of that imagination, because reality is there all around you. And I think we tend to escape to much easier things, but I think imagination is one of the most powerful tools out there.
That is what I think Albert Einstein said that. He said knowledge has limits. Imagination can take you any and everywhere in the world or the planet or the universe or however that quote went. But yeah, he also referred to that. So I think I did mention it to you the other day, but yeah, I know you also you like your animation movies and stuff. But I recently watched the entire Pinocchio, the old Afrikaans Pinocchio series
Yeah, you said,
on
yeah.
YouTube. Yes, and that brought me so much joy and so much comfort. You know how people like binge eat and comfort eat? I was comfort watching Pinocchio. And next on my list is Heidi. I just love Heidi. Heidi and Pinocchio were my all-time role models when I was a kid. Like, I think a lot of my life lessons as a child I've learned from those two characters. And it brought me so much comfort because it took me back to me being in my parents' house on the couch with the VCR machine and just watching Pinocchio and Heidi. So next on my list is Heidi to watch again. So growing up, Heidi and Pinocchio were my ultimate role models, and I think I've learned so much from those two characters, those two cartoons,
But
which
don't
was
you
yeah, I still enjoy as an adult.
don't you think there was something about, getting out a VHS tape and rewinding it and then watching the movie? There was something about that activity, knowing it's movie time. I'm going to give this movie my undivided attention. There's so many other things that distract us.
I
I know when
know.
people go
I
on,
cannot tell you.
yeah.
Because nowadays we watch movies, but you kind of like halfway watch it because it's so easy accessible because you go to your Netflix, your HBO, your Amazon Prime, your Hulu networks or Showmax that's in South Africa. And then you take forever to scroll, through things to finally decide what you're gonna watch. And then you kind of like just have it on in the back to be on
Yeah.
your phone to play a game or whatever, be on Instagram or just, to have that kind of like white noise in the in the back. But yeah, back in the day, it felt like you deserved that movie after,
Yeah. You went to
wait
go
for it.
to Mr. Video, and in America it's Blockbuster, and you can only take
Yes.
out three movies, and you beg your dad to, can I please watch this one? And
And you
everybody
watch
would
that
sit.
movie over and over.
Yeah, until you have to give it back. You watch that, like, I still have that movie for a couple of hours. Let's watch it again.
And then because you get paid a fine when it's late, and then also when you just took it out and you put it in the VCR and the previous person didn't rewind it. Oh goodness! Didn't that just that was yeah, maybe they did it because they were also like didn't have the time to rewind it because they were on the on the time schedule to go to the
But one thing that I took from that is, and this might sound a little silly, but that act of, after watching a movie, rewinding it and then putting it away, and certain seasons in my life, I would like to revise before I file it in my mental cabinet. Revise and take away from it that brought you joy, and you learn from all of your mistakes you made before you just go out and forget about that whole entire season in your life completely. And that's some little connectation I made with rewinding a VHS, is revise your life and take away the good and learn from the bad. And as something as simple as a VHS tape made me realize I want to continuously do this in my life.
Carl, that now makes you think of the last VHS tape that I rewinded, or what was the last VHS tape that I watched and didn't
Yo,
even realize or know that that was the last one. I wonder what it was.
that's how intense that metaphor is. One day you were watching a VHS, not knowing that that will be the last VHS that you'll ever watch.
I know, right? Isn't that crazy? Goodness.
I can't even remember what was the last VHS I watched. It's probably like a Bud Spencer movie because I grew up on my grandma's house.
Because, but that's the guy from SABC.
No, Bud Spencer was like this American guy, brought out a lot of movies, cowboy movies and everything like that. He's got really interesting.
Oh,
He,
oh. You
he
see,
was
I
like
only know
the
John Bond.
he was like the Tola van der Merwe of USA. That's how I used to see him.
Oh, okay, okay, yes. So you were into the Western movies when you were little.
Well, I just watched whatever was available in my grandma's house,
Whatever
because
was on the VHS tape.
whatever your parents decide to collect, that is what you watch in your house. You don't have Netflix, or it's either that or infomercials on SABC too.
So we had family tapes, because my dad bought that video recorder, and he used to, videotape us and things growing up. And when I was about 3 or 5 years old, listen to this. This is a freaking tragedy in my life. Was that little record button and the little plus, not the stop button, were next to each other on our VHS tape. And I don't know, maybe as a little child, when I was that little and that button was that small, you know, I um I was confused with you or whatever. And I was watching baby footage of me on a VHS tape as a baby. Yeah, as a toddler I was watching that. Well, toddler, I was like 4 or 5 or whatever. And then I accidentally pressed the the record button instead of the stop button when I was done, watching. And then I recorded all over my baby footage. Can you
Oh
believe that?
no.
That's terrible. Goodness, lost forever. But that's the wonderful thing about technology today. That that cannot happen.
You can save it in the cloud and all kinds of things like that.
Wow. Yeah, exactly. So I do still have a little, we still ended up with a little bit of footage of me as a baby, but most of it was, recorded over some sort of freaking, sardine run in the KwaZulu Natal, something like that. I can still remember that. That was terrible.
Reynette, I wanted to ask you, not only about the little table, the little tennis, hand tennis we jammed in the kitchen afterwards, but one thing that I always will cherish is we would sit in a vehicle and finish listening to a song. And
Yeah.
that always brought me to people are so quick to not give something a chance in their life, or so quick to move on and let go, that if they would stick around just a little bit, they would find those joys they have been looking for in their lives. And I always thought, sitting in a car, finish listening to a song is also a very good way to kind of like, that VHS metaphor, to rewind and reflect on what you just heard and what you just experienced. And that was always a very cool thing. Like, Reynette and myself would go karaoke until the early morning hours on a Sunday, and we would jam music on the way back to the boat. And then we always would just sit in the car and finish the song before we go in and get ready for the next day.
But God, you have to also add, we took the long way home as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Listen to more songs and to sing even more and to just have our own performance in the car as well. So yes, I think yeah, we were just like really well. I think we both. I mean, you are more musically, instrumentally talented than I am. I wish I had a natural, talent for instruments. I mean, I can sing kind of, but I love music, and I think that's something that you and I shared. That's
No, but but
definitely
but
that was.
what I but where I'm getting at is, instead of just going home and go to bed, I think if more people would take the route less traveled and, settle into what they're experiencing at that current moment of time. We're talking about Peter Pan syndrome, and we're also talking about being an adult for the future. But I think the biggest problem is, people don't experience the moment. And what I loved about that was we wanted to experience that specific moment as long as possible. And by
Yes,
trying
you
to
are right. I
rush,
think to make time stand still a little bit.
yeah, and I think everything is a rush. We're all part of a giant rat race, and everything is a rush. And it's kind of impossible after a while just to press that pause button a little bit and just sit down and like, let me experience this, what I'm feeling right now at this
You are
moment.
correct. I think we do live such fast-paced lives that we kind of like just live for the next thing. It doesn't matter what it is. We kind of like just live for the next thing. Okay, I have to go do this, and I have to go do this, and I have to go do this. And I mean, we've adapted to the technology and things around us. When I was in high school, a very dear Tanny of mine said to me, and this is something that stick with me: is we are all in a rat race, but at the end of the day, what we don't realize is if we stick in the rat race, we will all still just be rats. And that stuck with me. That's why that's something that rings true to me every time I feel like I'm rushing through life. That sometimes you have to pause and enjoy what's around you. You know, exactly
um
what you're saying right now.
yeah, and I think, seeing seeing what brings you that little scrapes of joy in your life, and trying to experience as much of it, will make your life a lot easier as well. I think if you acknowledge yourself mentally and be aware of your current mental state more often, you will actually try, I mean, as a habit, try to make better choices in your life.
But Kyle, what is also true is the people that you choose to do this with. I don't know if you remember that movie, oh goodness, Into the Wild, that was based on that the guy that went into Alaska. What was his name? Supertramp.
Yeah.
Nova Supertramp. Something. That was his the name he called himself. I'm sorry, I cannot remember names and stuff anymore. Like my brain is just has too many files nowadays. It's not happening. But at the end, I think he scribbled down somewhere in that van that he was living in, that school bus, was happiness is only real when shared. And I think obviously somebody that's so lonely and alone will say something like that, because yes, you can be happy all by yourself, like having that inner peace and that inner happiness, but it's just so much more enjoyable when you find somebody, whether it is somebody that you end up marrying or just somebody that you end up being friends, or to find somebody to enjoy a moment with. It makes it more memorable. It makes it two people are remembering this. And I think this is the same with you and me. I'm ever so grateful that you came across my life during that time, because you and I made so many um, um, memorable memories. And it's so fun to think back on this.
But I personally believe that if you're at peace with yourself, you can experience when that experience is shared, it can be shared with anyone. Because that's one thing I miss about music festivals, being there watching a band, and doesn't matter who is next to you, you and that person is experiencing the same thing at the same time, and being able to enjoy that moment with a stranger and
That's
experiencing
right.
that moment.
I think 95% of the people there will be in the same mindset as you, because you have a common interest. So
Yeah,
obviously common interest,
but
adds to that experience.
what I'm where I'm getting at is, if I am trying to be comfortable with my own company, okay? And I think the more comfortable I get with my own company, when I'm sharing an experience with someone, I'll be able to value that experience a lot more than someone who is not aware of, between inverted commas, the moment.
Exactly, but then you are the catalyzer. What's the word? Is that the word, catalyzer?
Catalyst.
Catalyst. Then you are the catalyst, because I've also come across people, especially at music festivals, that aren't having a good time, that's not really enjoying or whatever. And I've also experiences where wasn't having a good time, and somebody come across your path, and then all of a sudden this person cheers you up, or the other way around. So yeah, I think if you are in a good headspace, then you share and shed the joy.
Would you say that in your own mind, in Reynette's mind, it's a comfortable place to be?
Being the catalyst.
No, just being with yourself, in your own mind. Are you at comfort knowing, I want to address certain mental issues about myself? Are you comfortable with who you are as a person? Are you comfortable with your own company?
Absolutely. Um, but I also have to remind me on a regular basis that I don't always have to believe everything that goes on in my own head. Because sometimes you can lie to yourself, sometimes you can fabricate things, sometimes you do see something in yourself, of yourself, that you think you're self-conscious about and other people don't even see it, or the other way around. You can sometimes be an asshole without, in your own mind you're justifying that you are, but in somebody else's mind you're not. So you have to also I think to be that, you have to be realistic and not subjective about yourself, but look at yourself objectively.
Yeah, because it's, for me, you that fabrication you're talking about, for me, is you can't, you live in your own mind, and you only have the information available that you have been exposed to, and how you translate that information that you're being exposed to is extremely important, because that can either make or break your day.
Exactly. But you must also not be too hard on yourself, you know?
Yeah, I think there is a big difference between being hard on yourself and motivating yourself, because you can be hard on
Yes,
yourself and say, "Yes, I want to do this. I don't want to do this anymore. I want to move past this." But don't break yourself down. And I think that is the first instinct, is people will see these things that they want to work on, and if they fall back into habits or addictions that they want to avoid, the first instinct is to break yourself down. Why am I here? Why am I doing this to myself? Here I am again, instead of trying to motivate yourself to get out of it again.
yes. No, I agree. I agree with you 100% on that as well. There's a difference between like being self-destructive and being self-constructive.
Yeah. I want to also just ask you, when do you find yourself more yourself? And this is a very weird question, but when would you find yourself at peace? When would you say, in what act or in what environment do you find yourself to be the most you?
You know what, Kyle? I'm very lucky. I consider myself lucky to have found, you know, the love of my life, and I'm married to him. And I think I'm not entirely, goodness, giving him all the credit for being, giving me all that happiness, because happiness is also something that you choose, that also comes from within. But I think I am happiest. Yeah, this is only one of the places where I'm happiest. This is one of the places that came up. Um, is when I am literally just looking my worst at home, just wearing the worst t-shirt ever, and just a pair of shorts with hair in different directions, and I am just happy and relaxed, and I don't feel judged. I don't feel I don't feel pressure. Just being my bare self, and I still have somebody who doesn't judge me on it. That's still just there with me. I love sharing that with my husband, and being myself and being able to do that. And then I think a second part to that question is when I feel free, when I don't feel I have restraint, when I'm a Sagittarius. I don't, for some people that means something, but that is that is that is something that rings true to Sagittarius as well, is that to dream and to be free. I don't want to be a little bird in a cage. I want to have the cage to come back to, but I also like to be free and to go. I think that's why I love traveling so much in my life.
So, you've seen me at my worst as well, and I've got a final topic that I want to touch on before we go. And there was one particular night that changed my whole entire life, my whole entire being, where I am right now. There was one night in particular on one of my birthdays that changed completely. And that was one night I went out and I got smashed to a point where I've had like a full day hangover. And you kind of like nursed me back to health
That's
from that
human.
hangover. And honest question is, you how are we still friends after you know what I did, and how what mindset I was at that time, instead of telling seeing me as an individual where, you know what, he made those choices and he needs to suffer through it. You actually consciously decided, we didn't even really know each other that well, just as one human being, trying to make that hangover a little bit better for another human being, because it was disgusting, it was horrible what I went through and what I was enduring. But you just decided, you know what, this is a person that is going through something, and instead of doing the whole, avoiding that person, let him going through his own despair, you decided to actually help it. And I always thought that was one of the biggest acts of kindness. And the combination of me going out and getting smashed and doing half of the things I did, but what actually did the life changing thing afterwards was someone out there who I barely knew actually took their time to make sure that I get through that.
The thing is, I think it's obviously safe to say that you and I are much better friends now than we were back then. But I think you and I did have kind of like an instant connection. I okay, I just want to tell this story because I think it's when you and I saw each other for the first time, what went down. I just got to Fort Lauderdale like the second day I got to Fort Lauderdale, and I was still kind of like jet lagged and all new to America and stuff like that. And I was at a crew house. And
Yeah.
I had already met everybody in the crew house, and there were a few people there, and I was sitting by myself outside, having a cigarette, and all of
Yeah.
a sudden, this guy with orange hair
Yeah.
struck
Orange.
past me. you know, he didn't even look at me. He struck it past me. He knew the crew house code. Ding, 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 ding. Put in the code and walks in. And I'm like, who is this? I've met everybody that's been living in the crew house already. And here's this guy. And he's inside for a few moments and he comes back out and he walks past me. And I'm like, excuse me, who are you? And he's like, tell Mitch I was looking for him. I said, and who might you be? And he's like, you will know. And you just like at me, and you turned around and you shut it on. And I'm like, so you instantly obviously made an impression with me. And you and I actually ended up that night because you came back and Mitch knew who you were when I told him. And he's like, oh, yes, that's Kyle. And then, anyways, so yeah, we ended up going out that night. And you were just a Ramiki Eitmark. I remember that. But I liked you because you were funny, because you had my name on your ass, your name tattooed on your ass. I thought that was hilarious. And
Yeah.
then we went out that night, and you and I ended up at 3 a.m. at Doughboys. I had chicken wings, and you had a foot long. I don't know what sort of sub you had that. And we were just chatting. And you and I then also ended up on the couch in the crew house, just referencing lipstick, dipstick, and just
Yeah.
having a blast. And I really think that we did have a connection, and I think we did realize that. Listen, I recognized something in you, and you recognized something in me, and we liked each other immediately. I knew. And then coming back to your story when you came back to the boat and I was on watch and you looked, I want to say 2 degrees from being absolutely dead.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
how much
crazy.
can you be? And well, by then you and I actually had formed a friendship, and I cared for you. I really cared for you, and I knew. I mean, it wasn't for me to judge you for In fact, I was a little bit jealous I wasn't with you guys, but I wasn't much because I probably would have done whatever it was with you. But yeah, I really wanted you to be okay after that night. I really wanted you to not, you know, be become sick or ill or whatever. I just genuinely wanted to take care of you that day, and I did. I put a piece of bread next to you. I opened up your Coke next to you, so you don't have
It's
to put in
crazy
too much
stuff.
effort to do that. And
Yeah.
every half an hour, I peeked into the cabin and to turn you around like a baby, but like you do with it like a newborn baby. You have to turn
Yeah.
them over, making sure you're getting air and everything, and you were breathing. So yeah, I
So
just really wanted you to be okay.
the point I'm getting at is you've seen me from being that to where I am right now, and I think one of the most beautiful things that people don't really spend a lot of time at is friendship and what they value as a friendship and developing on friendships. It was absolutely beautiful for me to know that, no matter what I've done or what I've went through, there was someone, who's got your best interest at heart. And it's completely selfless. I mean, it's just two random human beings on this planet who decides that they want to be friends. And sharing your wedding with you guys and everything like that, it's just absolutely phenomenal. And one thing that I do want to say thank you for is being an absolutely phenomenal friend. And I think with what we talked about throughout the day, the reason why I have you on this podcast is I want to archive and continuously learn about myself and my friends. And I wouldn't have been where I am right now if it wasn't for people like you in my life. And I think everybody needs to value who they see as a friend and who they see as an acquaintance, because I've had much better experiences with people I hardly know than, coming back to that Tarzan syndrome, holding on to people who's been in my life for a very long time.
Mm, exactly. You can meet somebody today and be really good friends like within 3 months. Or you could have known somebody for 10 years and not be as good friends as them. The same thing with family. But I am one of those people that really cherish relationships. Um, because at the end of the day, I'm going to go to my grave with experiences and the love that I gave and the love that I received. I'm not going to go to my grave with a career or with money or with my most precious possession. The only thing that I can take with me into the next life is the love that I generated and that I received. And I think that is why relationships for me, and I mean obviously friendships, is very important to me. And growing with people, and sometimes you grow apart from people, and that is absolutely okay. And
Yeah.
I think the thing with me was our friendship wasn't based. We weren't good time friends because you get those good time friends,
Yeah.
your drinking buddies, the people that only calls you when they want to have a braai and talk shit. But then I think what has proven um, what you just said for us is that we didn't need alcohol because I know you haven't been drinking for quite some time. I mean, that's not something that you and I need to have a connection because a lot of people,
Mm.
alcohol and good times is the only connection they have. I remember when I returned back to Fort Lauderdale and went to all the places that you and I used to hang out with, everybody would ask me, "Where's Kyle? Where's Kyle? Where's Kyle?" Like everybody remembered you and me, being together in places and stuff like that. That was pretty cool. I was kind of sad when I tell people, no, he decided to stay in South Africa. I was sad.
So, Reynette, I would just like to thank you for coming on my podcast and sharing all of this with us. And I want to ask you if there's anything that you would like to say to the listeners out there. Now is your time.
Goodness, I didn't prepare for this question. I don't have anything. Carl, but yeah, let me first thank you as well for having me here today. I hope you gained as much from this conversation that we had as much as I did. I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much. And I was so excited last night. Before an event, you're like, "Oh, what am I going to wear?" And I'm like, "Reynette,
What am I going to wear to a podcast?
a geisha outfit is not going to make a difference."
Nice.
Anyway, so yeah, I was very excited about this, and I just want to, for all your listeners, thank you for listening to us today. Kyle picking my brain, picking Kyle's brain. It was a very joyful experience, and take care of each other and take care of yourself.
Renee, thank you very much once again. And I would love to see you, hear you on more of these. You should have a beautiful day ahead.
Thank you, Kyle, and you too.
Bye.
Bye.